Hi everybody, it's Janet and welcome to my craft room. Today we're going to be working with 6 of the Art Impressions freebie stamps to incorporate them into some children's Valentines. This is a fun little project and I'm also going to show you how I colored them with my Copic markers. You know what we're going to do next. Let's get crafting. So here are the 6 freebie stamps that Art Impressions released with the second new release of the year. So there are 6 of them that were issued, and whenever you purchase $30 or more, you could choose one of these to go in your order for free. And they call these the Art Impression freebies. And they're limited edition. Once they're gone, they're gone. And they're really cute, nice little stamps. What I thought I would do is kind of use all of these to make Valentines for kids because they're so cute and they're just the right size for that. So I'm going to show you how I put together the Valentines, and then also I'm going to show you how to color, or at least how I colored each of these using Copic markers. First, I'm going to show you how to make the Valentines, and then at the end I'll have each of the animals colored with Copics along with the markers that I used, so you can go to whatever animal that you want to see colored. So let's get started with making the Valentine itself. So I thought it'd be fun to find some punny sayings to make my Valentines with, which would of course go with each of the animals. So I found some cute ones, and then I made these up on a Word document and printed them out. And I did put the to and the from on the back as well as the sentiment on the front, although in the end that to and from I ended up not using. But I found some cute little sentiments like, I kid you not, you're marvelous. For the goat, you quack me up. Valentine. For the duck, it's mice to know you. For the farm mouse, and so on. So that was fun to work on and figure out some little sayings to go with those animals. So the next step is to take a stitch die from the double stitched rectangle set from Art Impressions, and I picked the 4th largest die in that set, and I'm going to cut these sentiments out to be used on the cards. Now to begin with, I'm going to take the die that I intend to use and lay it out there so I can kind of see where I should cut the cardstock. I don't want to cut it too narrow or it won't fit the sentiment, and so I'm going to use the die as kind of a judge to figure out where to cut the cardstock at. And then I'm also going to trim it down a bit. Before I cut it in half, I decided, you know, it'd be smart to just trim it down some so it's not quite as long. So I'm going to do that, and then I will keep that piece of cardstock. That's a nice one that I can use for other projects. Now I can cut this approximately in half, and then I can begin to use that die to cut these rectangles out and begin to use them for my cards. And you'll see here I did cut the first one out, and what I'll do is the same process for all 6 of these so that I end up with 6 cards just like this one. Next, I'm going to work on the card base itself. So I'm going to take a 12 by 12 piece of decorative paper that's for scrapbooking typically, and I'm going to cut it in half to 6 by 12. And then I'm going to take the 2nd largest die from the Art Impressions double stitched die set, and I'm going to cut out 6 rectangles in this paper. And how it's going to work is we'll put the sentiment that I cut on top of it like I'm showing you there. And then I'm going to put this pretty lacy heart onto the card base. And this comes from a Lawn Fawn set. It's Lacy Heart Stackables. There are 3 hearts in this set. I've used the middle one in this case. I cut 6 of them out, and they're approximately 3 by 3 squares. So if you have any heart that would kind of fit that, it'll work. And what I'm going to do is attach the dog or glue the dog onto this heart. Now previously I did go ahead and color all 6 of these little animals with my Copic markers, and if you'd like to see how I colored them and what colors I used, you can go to the end of the video. In the video description underneath the title of this video, I'll have for you the chapter breakouts for each of the animals. So if you only want to see the duck and you're not interested in the rest of them, you'll know exactly where to go based on that time stamp. So for example, if it says it's at minute 11 and 21 seconds, you can fast forward to that and just watch that section. So once the animal is attached to the front of the heart, I'm going to go ahead and then glue that to the sentiment portion. And then I'm going to take the whole thing and attach it to the heart-shaped pattern paper. And the reason that I attached the heart to the sentiment first instead of attaching the sentiment and then the heart was so that I could see where I need to put it on that pattern paper so that it looks centered and or balanced. If I had put the sentiment on first, I don't have that heart next to it to necessarily judge. So it just was easier for me to do it in this manner. You could do it any way you'd like, but that was how I went about it. And so you can see here the finished front, or nearly finished front, because there's a little more decorating to do. Here are the pieces that I'm going to further embellish with. Now on the back, I have went ahead and cut another piece of cardstock the same size as the pink patterned paper, and that's really because I need to add some more thickness and strength to this, because remember that pink pattern paper was just cardstock weight or pattern paper weight. It was very light weight, and I needed a little more bulk and stiffness. So a piece on the back will take care of that issue. And then I've cut with my Cricut a couple little pieces. One is some glitter cardstock in red. You need a heart, right? You need another heart in here. So it's just a matter of deciding where to put it on the big heart. Sometimes with these cards I put it on the left. Most time I put it on the right. But somehow it just felt in this one in particular that the heart should go on the left to me. So that's what I did. I also cut out these little XOXO statements, and I'm putting one on the front of every card, and I will vary a little bit as to where that goes as well. Now if you notice, there is a little bit of white excess hanging over the edge of this card, and what I will do is just take my little scissor and fussy cut that so that it doesn't show. I went ahead with the same process and did all 6 of the animals, and you can see the finished cards here. They will all fit in a A2 sized envelope, and they would be so much fun for your child or your grandchild to give to their little friends. Alright, so now the next section of this video is going to have each of the animals, and I'm first going to start with coloring the dog. This is the packaging with the illustration, and you can see my finished dog resembles this pretty closely. So yes, I did take advantage of that illustration and tried to mimic that as much as I could. To start off with, I used R20 to get some cheeks and ears, some pink in there. And then I'm moving on to the browns. The first one is E47, and I'm going to use this as the darkest shading. So for me, I like to do the darkest first and then work to the lightest. So in addition to the body, I have used it on some of the ear and the tail. And then I move on to E44, which is a bit lighter, and filling in areas with that. And there's also one other color in this blend, E43, which I'm bringing in now. And like the package, even though it wasn't drawn in, I'm leaving a little white spot on the dog's stomach or chest, I guess is probably the right way to say that. Some on his tail and also on the paws. And then also right in the middle of the face. I use a fine line black pen to bring in some details back, and also a little white pencil to get it some highlights in his eyes and nose. Next is the cute little farm goat freebie stamp. Isn't that cute? I just love this little goat. I was not expecting to love this one as much as I did when I started coloring it. She is just adorable. So to start this one off, I use W3 to put in some of the shadows, and then blend that out a little bit with E50. This is the areas that are really going to kind of look more white by the time we're done. Next, I'm putting in E13. I'm coloring up a good part of the body with this. Remember, these are fairly small stamps, so again, there's not a lot of complexity to them necessarily to make them look nice. They're pretty quick and easy to put together. The next color I'm going with is E23, and this is actually opposite of what I just told you, where I said I normally start with the dark and then work to the light. But with this one, I just wasn't confident enough to do the dark first. I just thought it'd be good to do the light and pretty much cover everything on the body and then go back and darken it up in the areas that should be. So that's what I did. Here I'm bringing in E18 for the horns and the tail and his little goatee there. And then I'm bringing in some pink with R20. Then to finish off, I'm going to use a little bit of E13, just a little touch again of R20, then some white gel pen, and again a little bit of E50, and that completes our adorable little goat. The third animal in this farm freebie set is the farm goose. She is also so cute. I love the expression on this one. So let's go ahead and start coloring her. So to start with, I'm going to use the light colorations again first. We have YR21, which I'm using on a lot of her body, a good half of it anyway. And then I'm bringing in E31 for the shading. So she's darker underneath her chest as compared to like her wing area, and adding some additional shadows in there. Then I used Y11 on her feet, and then I've got YR16 as accents for the feet, the beak, and her cheeks with a little bit of white gel pen, and she's done. Here I've got the farm donkey freebie, and there's my finished colored image, and there is the package illustration. So you can see how this is going to go. Let's get started coloring this one up. All right, this donkey is stamped up, and now it's time for me to bring in the Copic coloring. I'm starting this one by kind of drawing out the shape of his shading and then filling in with W5. And this is a lot of the donkey is going to be in W5 actually. So you can see I'm putting in shadows and coloring him in, leaving those white spaces. And now I'm going to use W7, the darkest color that I will use in this, to do his tail. And then I'm going to bring in some W3 and then a little bit of W5 again. And I'm going to alternate W3 and W5 around his stomach area. I'm going to go over the legs and the main shadow with W5 again, just trying to get things blended in a bit more. And then again, W7 for his mane, and W3 for the ears. Once again, using W3 to kind of go over all that area. Some W1 for his nose, filled in with some R20 for cheeks and a little bit of nose blush, and also some blush there in his ears. And then some white gel pen for highlights. And this one is done. This is the farm horse freebie, and on the right is my colored stamped image, and on the left is the packaging. You can see it looks very similar once again. So let's get started. This is my stamped image, and I'm going to start with E33 first of all, a little bit on the nose, and then some R20 on the cheeks. And then I'm using E23. This is going to be the primary color of the horse, and a good part of it is going to be this color. And then I'm going to use a darker brown for the shading. So as you can see, I've colored a lot of him. And now I'm going to put in some more R20, and I'm going to start adding some E25 for the shading. So I'm following the package and kind of putting in the darker areas of this horse, where there of course would be some shading underneath the stomach, along the legs of the horse, and some of the ear area. And then I'm going to use E49, the darkest of all the browns in this, for his mane and tail. Fill that in, and then use again some E25 to kind of go over everything again. And same thing with the E23. We'll see that shortly here. And I just continue to do a little bit of blending. And finally add some gel pen at the end underneath his cheeks, and then this one is done. This one is the farm mouse freebie, another cute little expression on this stamp. So let's start coloring this. Again, it's a bunch of grays, which makes it actually easier, I think. To start this stamped image, I'm going to begin with C5, which is the darkest of the grays that I'm going to use on his tail. And then I'm going to start filling in with C3 for most of the body shadows. As on the others, I'm using the packaging to kind of guide me as to where the various shadows could go. I don't follow it exactly, but fairly close. Now this lighter gray is C1, and I'm just going to keep filling in with C1, then going back with C3 because it kind of fades out. So a second coat is needed, and I do the same for the body with the C1. And then I'm going to bring in the favorite R20 for the cheeks and the ears. And then I decided to use a little E13 for his hands and his feet tips. And then the last thing I'm doing is just blending it in again some more, applying some more C3, using a little C1 to blend the edges out, and just kind of trying to darken this up and give it more shading and dimension. The last thing I'm going to add is a little bit of white gel pen, and this little mouse is complete.